This is an Urdu transcript for the film The Word Incarnate. It adapts the Gospel of John, following specific architectural logic from its first line. The text presents a sweeping account of the life and ministry of Jesus Christ, tracking his movements from his birth to his eventual execution. A biography usually functions as a historical record, intended to inform the reader about the past. This script, however, operates as a tool of persuasion. The structure is a funnel. On the left, a standard linear timeline. On the right, the narrative points of this film converge. Every miracle and teaching is positioned to drive the viewer toward a single point of decision regarding their own future. To understand the text is to look past the historical scenes and see how the narrative is assembled to necessitate a spiritual verdict. The story skips a typical human origin. It begins instead with the abstract concept of the Word made flesh, establishing the protagonist's identity before he ever enters a scene. This opening frames the subject not as a teacher who became significant, but as a pre-existent divine entity. It sets the stakes at a cosmic level from the first minute. The text then introduces the baptism by John the Baptist. In a narrative sense, this provides the first instance of external testimony used to back up the claim of divinity. By following a divine claim immediately with a corroborating witness, the narrative attempts to establish a baseline of authority before the protagonist begins his public ministry. With this authority in place, the film's events are no longer presented as random history. They are depicted as deliberate interventions. The narrative then shifts to specific miracles, such as the transformation of water into wine at a wedding in Cana. These wonders act as data points. The divine claim links directly to physical acts, justifying the theology. This evidence introduces a viewer requirement: spiritual rebirth. The text presents this rebirth as the sole link between humanity and the divine, a necessary condition to achieve peace. The miracles provide the logical framework. They are the evidence used to make the abstract demand for a spiritual transformation feel like a rational next step. The argument reaches its peak during the sequence of betrayal, crucifixion, and resurrection. The narrative depicts the execution not as a tragedy or a failure of the mission, but as the mission itself. It centers on the concept of atonement. The crucifixion is presented as a transaction, a sacrifice required to resolve the problem of human sin. The resurrection serves as the final piece of the argument. It is the evidence used to validate the entire claim of sacrifice and divinity. This climax is intended to close the loop. It offers a narrative where the problem of death is solved by the specific actions shown on screen. While the film's timeline ends in the past, its objective is focused on the viewer's present. The historical events serve only to set the stage for a choice that the script intends to trigger once the credits roll. The authority, the evidence of the miracles, and the logic of the sacrifice all converge here. The narrative structure funnels the viewer toward a binary: acceptance or rejection. The text concludes with an invitation. It asks the viewer to accept the atonement of Christ as the means to gain eternal life. The Word Incarnate uses the Gospel of John to do more than tell an ancient story. It creates a structural challenge that forces every new audience to confront the question of faith.